Despite what his mind, his body, his intelligence, and his very own sensory abilities refused to deny. Deep within what remained of the heart of the King of Curses, he knew one thing was fundamentally true. While those eyes were unmistakable, that was not Gojo Satoru. What's up, guys? Elepunzer here, and here we are to do a nice little breakdown and discussion on Gojo hypothetically being back. And like a sub-idea I have with Gojo being back. Because I was going to split this into two videos, but I figured, I might as well cover it in both. But let's not waste any more time, and let's hop right into it. Adding me. Are you ready? 3, 2, 1, go. What's up, guys? That guy with a, come here, pencil here. Fun fact, I do happen to have it on me and keep it on me at all times. And another fun fact, once again, Chapter 260 ended with the hypothetical return of Satoru Gojo. Once again, the officials actually ended with this being the final page, which is different than how it was in the TCB scans, but regardless, this is where it ends. A ghost of immense strength, who he had buried with his own hands. Gojo Satoru may be back. Now, obviously, this has implications, to say the very least. Implications that are good, bad, negative, up, down, left, right. Is that a cheat code? But let's talk about just the initial premise. Gojo Satoru coming back. On one level, this is amazing. The idea that we could hypothetically see not just a traditional 2-man jumping, but a 3-man jumping of Todo Aoi, Yuji Itadori, and Gojo Satoru all jumping the King of Curses, finally tearing him down. Oh, it just sounds like straight gladiators. And with that being the case, that's real good. Real good. We haven't really got to see a Gojo jumping, because no one's been strong enough to keep up with the jumping. But with a man who can manipulate the very world upwards of 50 times in a second, and the empty vessel of a king who now stands to rival him, of course, maybe those two could stand on par with Satoru Gojo. Especially a Satoru Gojo who may or may not have lost an eye, considering we only see one of these eyes. And while it's not stated here in the officials, in the original translations, those eyes by the editor were claimed to be unmistakable. Eyes, plural, like with an S, which was there are both of them. But hypothetically, he could be nerfed, and that nerf could be massive enough that it wouldn't actively just become the Gojo show when he came back. However, like I said, well, that possibility is cool. Let me level with you real quick. There's no like easy way to nerf Gojo, if you know what I'm talking about. Because let's be real, do we have any idea what losing one of the 6 eyes would actually do? Like efficiency, how much weaker would that make him? Would he not have access to 24/7 infinity? Would his RCT output drop? Would his general output drop? We just don't know. We don't know. If he lost one of the eyes, he may be the exact same for all we know. We have no clue. Presumably, he'd still have to use the Limitless, because if he didn't, he wouldn't really be worth fighting alongside. Don't get me wrong, I think Gojo is powerful without Infinity, but without the Limitless, he's but a man. And don't get me wrong, a man of Gojo's caliber is still extremely powerful, but is he tweaking off 8 Black Flashes powerful? Is he Viper Slap, manipulate space and time, and 50 times in a single second powerful? Probably. But with that being the case, Gojo coming back could lead to that issue. Where either we have to nerf him into the ground, which kind of defeats the point of bringing the character back, unless we're talking about him on a specific character level, and the idea that he could finally connect to people, on the fact that he is no longer just the strongest, but actually Gojo Satoru, a man who was the strongest but fell from grace, or he comes back and does exactly what Gojo has already done. Taken over the community, taken over the context, shatter the internet, make Chapter 260 trend all on his own because of one panel of the man that could possibly be Gojo Satoru. Gojo is overwhelming. I think that is both a blessing and a curse, of course, fitting to the irony and the nature of Jujutsu Kaisen. Gojo is omnipresent, all-powerful in a way, in the modern anime scene. You can't turn a corner of anyone in the modern anime era and have them not know Gojo Satoru's name. It's simple and clean like that. And that's my biggest issue with this just being a blanket Gojo return, right? Don't get me wrong, I see the potential.
I've been convinced on the idea that the character could hypothetically be seen as unfinished, and especially if you drop a nerf on him, a nerf relative enough to what Sukuna has lost in all his nerfs, especially with the confirmation that Sukuna can apparently just cast his domain infinitely more times as long as he waits for the cooldown now, I can definitely see the vision on Gojo coming back. But ultimately, I feel like it does. No matter how it's handled, no matter how much you nerf him, how much you slobber knock him into the ground, no matter how much you take away, whether it be 1 eye, 2 eye, 3 eye, 4 eye, 5 eye, 6 eye, no matter what, Gojo's a little bit too overpowering. He's still a little bit too heavy on the narrative weight side. He would still override Yuji Todori. Don't get me wrong, everybody in their mama is happy that Todo's back and Todo got a massive, juicy, scrumdiddlyumptious amp with this Vibra Slap. Everyone's loving it. But still, the core of Chapter 260 until the very end is Yuji Todori. The key to all the major damage, the one who tears out Sukuna's heart in the end, the one who truly stands equal, if not rivaling and surpassing the king. That's ultimately Yuji Todori. But with Gojo Satoru coming back, weakened or not, he will override Yuji. He will overtake him. He will weaken Yuji. And here's the thing, right? Notably, I'm a big believer in the idea that Gojo Satoru, despite falling, despite being defeated by Ryoma and Sukuna, despite everything that comes with the consequences of Gojo Satoru losing his life, ultimately the battle of Gojo versus Sukuna never really ended. In fact, it's still raging on, ever since 236 onwards. Because, remember, just as much as this was a physical battle, it was a battle of ideologies. The ideology of Sukuna versus the ideology of Gojo. And obviously these two stood in direct opposition to each other, but they both had a philosophy on power. And what that power meant, and ultimately what the future would hold for those with power. Gojo believed that by raising up a strong generation to surpass him one day, he would be able to leave the world in peace. He would be able to move forward without worry that things would fall apart in his absence. And Yuji, and Todo, and Hikari, and Yuta, and Maki, and everyone who's decided to keep on fighting, all these strong allies that Gojo raised, they've been doing that. They've been keeping his fight going. Ideologically, they've been proving his point. And as much as I do like the idea that's been presented to me, the idea that Gojo can still represent this facet of the ideological battle alongside Yuji, Todo, and the rest of the crew, I still ultimately think it does undermine it. Because, I'll be real with you, Gojo is still, in spite of all that Yuji Todori has done to tear Sukuna down, despite all that Maki Zenin has done to tear Sukuna down, despite all that Yuta Kotsu did to tear Sukuna down, whether it be Hana, whether it be Kashimo, whether it be Higuruma, everybody from Kusakabe to Miguel, none of them have come close to a fraction of the contribution that Gojo has. They just have it. They just have it. And you can't convince me otherwise. I can definitely lean and rock with the idea of debating on who number 2 is. A lot of people are saying Yuta for the fact that he tore off arms, tore out tongues, essentially hard locked off World Slash. Some people are saying Maki for the idea that she tore off multiple arms, was able to stall Sukuna out for a little bit, and so far was able to do serious, long-lasting damage with the implications of Soul Split Katana and the tearing out of his heart. And of course, a bunch of people have given credit to Yuji Itadori for his massive and continuous weakening of the King of Curses through his constant soul strikes, or at least a boundary between souls. So all of that is in fact there. But note how we're debating number 2, number 3, number 4. No one can debate number 1 because Gojo's already done his part. As much as I like to give Kashimo his due credit for coming out the clutch and going a little bit crazy against the super weakened Maguna and forcing him, well, I'd say forcing him. I don't think this Maguna was ever going to beat CT Kashimo. But forcing him to incarnate, as much as I like to give him credit for taking off that last 2% of that original health bar, Gojo did all the work. Gojo put them in the position that they did. Gojo, according to his students and everyone there, including Sukuna, Gojo's the one who wore Sukuna down to the point where this is even a possibility. Where the hypothetical of Sukuna losing at all was even laid on the table. Gojo's done his part. He's done it, and he's done it well. The fact that Sukuna needs to resort to binding vows to draw back his domain from the depths of darkness that it was lost in was due to Gojo Satoru simply hitting him with his own domain for 10 seconds. The reason Ryomen Sukuna can't use Megami's body as an initial meat shield anymore, and may have fully lost access to the 10 Shadows, which in Sukuna's hands was undeniably one of the most powerful techniques in the verse, is because of Gojo Satoru deciding to wipe the 10 Shadows from existence, both with the deletion of Ahito and obviously the absolute erasure of Big Raga through the Unlimited Hollow Purple. Sukuna has felt conflicted and lost and confused in the sauce, all because of one man, Gojo Satoru. I keep switching back between Satoru and Satoru, but because of Gojo, Sukuna is where he is. Because of Gojo, our cast has really been able to fight the way they've been able to fight, and it's all because of Gojo. And ultimately, bringing him back will not. I've heard things like this, and I'll say this. I don't believe bringing him back will undermine his contributions. It will only add to them. But in my opinion, that's the issue. Bringing back Gojo gives him more when he already has the most. The fact that our main character, who has hit 8 of the system mechanics, back to back to back to back, survived a domain expansion that was at full output from the King of Curses, has managed to be stated his equal, his rival, and possibly surpassing him, having rivaling potential, overall awakening 2 separate curse techniques, one over the time skip and one live on the field of battle, going crazy with multiple partners from Yuta Kotsu to Maki Zenin to now Todo Aoi. Despite all that, the fact that I cannot confidently say that Yuji's even committed a fraction of the real damage to this fight that Gojo did, it's insane. It's absolutely bukubakush. It's ludicrous. Which is why I'm still not really cool with the idea of this just being him back. He's done enough. He's done his part. Let Yuji cook. Let Todo cook. Let's see them surpass him. Let's see it. Because let's be real. Outside of the merger, which is something that we'll talk about in a second in terms of what Gojo could actually be needed for if he were to be resurrected. Outside of that, once Sukuna is down, there's nothing outside of statements that could prove that our casting crew has surpassed Gojo like he claimed they would. You know what would stop that even harder? Gojo coming back in a weakened state and overriding the entire battlefield by simply his presence. That would be too much, and it would be too much against someone who already has someone lined up for them. Yuji and Sukuna are built for each other. Quite literally, in Yuji's case, for being the vessel and cage for Sukuna. This is destiny in a strange sense. A twisted destiny, a broken destiny, don't get me wrong, but it is destiny all the same. And ultimately, Gojo Satoru would be a flaw in that destiny. He would be a flaw in this story of creation. But destiny, fate, connections. What is fate built upon in the world of Jujutsu Kaisen? What is it built upon? Well, legally speaking, it's built upon those unmistakable eyes. It's built upon this man. It's built upon the Star Plasma Vessel and Tengen. Overall, fate still exists within Jujutsu Kaisen to a certain degree. The fact that the 6 eyes existed as long as they did, even after the Star Plasma Vessel was felled and Tengen evolved, shows that fate still has some sort of jurisdiction over the world. Gojo Satoru rose to match that fate, even with his birth changing the balance. So, what does that mean? Fate has changed, but it isn't broken, right? So, what would fate be thinking now that Ryomen Sukuna is the vessel for the merger? The thing that could hypothetically wipe out everything in Japan and then by proxy the entire world. Cursed energy would ultimately be conglomerated into this one apex creature. The lives of millions being sacrificed. What would fate have to say about that? They probably wouldn't like it. Whatever you think the interpretation of fate or a higher power that is in the Jujutsu Kaisen universe, it clearly is hinted at through angel through the connections between Kenjaku, Tengen, and the Six Eyes, and the Star Plasma Vessel. All of it exists for a reason. So there is a certain way, in spite of all that I've said, that I'd be okay with Gojo coming back. Even, well, to be fair, I was about to say even as himself, but not really. This idea is the other idea that I have about Gojo's hypothetical resurrection. The fact that, despite it being in body, in flesh, in ability, and possibly even in skill, it could be Gojo Satoru, but much less. If you'll remember, Kenjaku was mentioned to have sort of tried something like this before. On the very day of merging, he had encountered a Six Eyes user. Not necessarily one he had slain. We don't know if it's the same one he had slain all those years ago before that day of merging or not, but a Six Eyes user reappeared. Now, of course, I mentioned the hypothetical that this could be Yuto Akotsu in a previous video, but what if fate, what if the world itself wanted to stop the merger more than anything else? And what if it needed to use the one thing that it considered strong enough to fight the anomaly that is known as Ryomen Sukuna? What if fate decided to bring back Gojo Satoru, but not Gojo Satoru, rather his abilities, his flesh, his mind, his body, all running on pure instinct? What if Gojo Satoru was no longer the man we once knew, but rather a monster, a creature, a vessel for the limitless, something that is reduced to nothing, nothing more than a vessel. A puppet of carnage, if you will. If you'll remember, Toji Fushiguro underwent a similar phenomenon, but that was born of very specifically not the universe itself calling for him, but a broken seance technique. But, considering how important fate and destiny and the right path and all that has been laid out for, Gojo coming back, but not as Gojo, rather an empty husk with a singular objective, slay Ryomen Sukuna, stop the merger at all costs, no matter what, could be interesting. Making Gojo something of a final boss, or a penultimate boss before the merger, could be neat. Now, of course, that would require Gojo to tweak out, to get a little bit violent against everybody. Not just have his voltage ramp up, but actually strike wildly, unlike how he typically would. Is there any hints of that, though, in a 260? Like I said, we only get to see one panel of the man. Is it even possible that it's even remotely hinted that this Gojo could not be Gojo? Well, remember, not only are only the eyes stated to be unmistakable, not the flash, not the hair, not anything else, just the eyes, but also, there's, with the official translations page order, a certain mystery, a certain vagueness that is set up by the end. Who says this? Domain expansion. Clearly, it should just be Sukuna, right? Like, he raises the finger after Yuji starts to dig out his heart, and then he's just like, yeah, whatever. We shall be in a domain together. And he goes to raise it up. But notably, why don't we see him just speak it then? Why is it coded in this black box? Individual and separate from everything else. 2, why don't we see it activate? Why would he just pump fake a domain expansion and then nothing happen? Admittedly, sure, there's not much time after he says it and strikes a pose and makes a symbol, but we know domain expansions are relatively quick moving, especially what Sukuna should be, yet we know it still has a physical construct. And also, he sees something. Something that if reduced down to nothing but pure instinct, something that if forced to simply act as a puppet of fate, would cast domain expansion, regardless of whether or not Yuji Itadori, one of his prize students, and Todo Aoi, another one of his prize students, were even there. It's not impossible, but not entirely unlikely, that ultimately Gojo Satoru no longer exists. He's still happy. The airport is still airporting. He has flown off. He's gone away. He's enjoying the afterlife now. He finally got the exact dream he wanted, to meet someone powerful enough to allow him to finally feel comparable. Not simply a beautiful flower being observed, but one of many lily pads floating in the lake of life. But his body still has a job to do. Regardless of all that has come before, Gojo's body still has a battle to fight. A battle to fight against the King of Curses, who currently is the vessel for the merger. And ultimately, the merger, under no circumstances, can happen. By the whims of fate, by the call of destiny, if the merger were to occur, everything would fall. And ultimately, destiny, fate, a higher power in Jujutsu Kaisen simply cannot allow that. No matter what, fate must be upheld. A strict order and process to these things. And the linchpin of that process for the past 1,000 years has always been the Six Eyes user. Even if the Six Eyes user was slain at birth, their body may resurrect to come stop what dares to assail them. It's a possibility. Now, admittedly, I'm still, once again, running into the same issues I had with just this being a regular Gojo return. By doing all this, even if reducing Gojo down to a puppet of carnage with no sentient thought and just having him be this monster, this creature, this animal with overwhelming raw power, all that good juicy stuff, getting his gains of everything, we still run into the very, very, very concrete issue of like, okay, but how does this not overshadow Yuji? Well, that's where the 50-50 comes in. How could Yuji bypass Infinity if this was just Gojo coming back? He can't. So that's the weird thing. It's why I'm still against the idea of Gojo coming back in its entirety and this not just being a tweak off vision. Because Sukuna's on the verge of losing his life. That's the only reason why I'm hesitant. Because still, Gojo's just a little bit too strong, a little bit too powerful, a little bit too dangerous for this version of Sukuna, who couldn't even dare to use the World Clean Slash if he wanted to because of the physical state he's in. It's unfortunate, but it'd be like that when it'd be like that, especially when it'd be like that. Meaning that Gojo Satoru would come back and immediately win. Tweaking off the multiple black flashes or not, one domain expansion, and that may be done. So, ultimately, Gojo coming back is a two-sided coin. One side of the coin, when you flip it, has all the positivity. From the continued character arc to the continued character interactions to the proper confirmation and resolution of Gojo versus Sukuna as not just an ideological battle, but an actual battle with the help of Satoru and Gojo. All of that is there. But at the same time, there's the idea that fate itself could be working to hold him. Fate itself could be working to rise him. Fate itself, regardless of the potency of Jujutsu or lack thereof, fate and destiny may bring the Six Eyes back as an empty husk to simply do battle and stop the merger. Regardless of what impact that has on Yuji, his power growth could go absolutely crazy. And we could finally see the students surpass the master. However, that's what I think. Please let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Do you guys want Gojo to come back? Do you like Gojo coming back completely as he is? Or do you want him to come back as a puppet of carnage sort of thing where he's just there as a guardian of fate? Do you want him to be the final boss or something like a penultimate boss or anything in between, any type of boss at all, or just purely an ally? Please let me know all that and more in the comment section down below. I'd like to thank you so much for watching. Please remember to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. Make sure to hit that little notification bell so you not miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have a picture down below where you can support me for as low as $1 a month. Things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. You also now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perk and more. Some of those perks will include the live reactions of the very next chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen, ad-free variations of all my videos, and if you become a $25 Patreon and $25 member, you can order whatever video you want. Now, also, you have a link to my Ko-Fi in the description down below, where you can support me for as low as 5 beans in order to get your boy a nice little short video, and or 25 beans to get yourself a regular length video. But now, I'd like to thank you so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is Dagger the Pencil, writing off. I'd like to give a thank you to our $3 members: O'Connor Plays, Greyhound, At Kids Void, Astro, Eternal Flame, Red Wolf 4765, King Sukuna, NMA, Real Rare, Paris Arnold, and G Prosper.
And I'd like to give a thank you to our $5 members, Super Gamer Q, Steron, Sean, Sammy, Oexian, Midnight Lord 21, Kevin Encarnacion, Josh Brown, and A+A. And I'd like to give a thank you to our $7 member, Autumn Mornings Lazo. And I'd like to give a thank you to our $10 members, Robbie Uchiha and Jay Warrior. And I'd like to give a thank you to our $10 patrons, Joaquin Munoz, and Idem Okami. And I'd like to give a final gargantuan thank you to our $25 patron, Calvin Elder.